I found a great book recently. It's by a guy named John Webster, and it was published in London in 1677. I'm going to read you the title page of the book. It says the following: The Displaying of Supposed Witchcraft, wherein is affirmed that there are many sorts of deceivers and impostors, and diverse person under a passive delusion of melancholy and fancy, but that there is a corporal league betwixt the devil and the witch, or that the devil has carnal copulation, or that witches are turned into cats, dogs, raise tempests, or the like, is utterly disproved. This is a text by John Webster, published in London in 1677. It is a very important book. And the reason it's so important is that John Webster was among the very first European thinkers to question the reality of the demonic and satanic manifestations that had plagued Europe all through the time of the Inquisition, and that even would later manifest itself in the New World. After this book was published in 1677, there would be an outbreak of witch hysteria that would afflict Salem, Massachusetts in 1691. Now, what Webster does is he demonstrates that there is no actual reality of this thing called satanic or demonic manifestation. What there is are people who are in despair, people who know no other way to respond to the hardship and misery of their lives than to act out demonic possession and draw attention to themselves and then blame others for their problems and accuse others of witchcraft. And then folks would come in, the inquisitors would come in, they would interrogate people, torture them into confessing what they wanted them to confess, and then there would be executions, usually in Europe, horrible ways that were chosen to kill these people as painfully and horribly as they possibly could. What Webster basically maintains is that this is a passive delusion of melancholy and fancy. In other words, they are just making it up in consequence of the pain and misery of their existence. Now, another great aspect of his work, of Webster's work, has to do with the interpretation of biblical miracles. Very controversial, but he suggests that the miracle stories we find in the Bible might not be historically, literally accurate. But rather, what's going on there is that a given culture is looking at signs and wonders and sharing with themselves their perceptions of signs and wonders, which are used to validate a culture that is being oppressed by another culture. So that as different groups of people struggle with each other for supremacy, the signs and the miracles will empower one group over the other group. In my own writing, I suggest a good example being the story of Elijah. Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 18, where he calls down fire from heaven to shame and destroy the priests of Baal. That as he does that, it is a story or a narrative of one culture struggling against another. Now, whenever we study history or study the history of the scriptures, we will find in that history intense human conflict, ambiguity, and the struggles of people against the manifestation of evil in the world. Generally, the evil resides where there is power. Those in power utilize evil ambiguously to stay in power and to keep others out of power. And this is basically human history. Now, the final lesson for us all is to be careful what we choose to believe in. History is history, and it has many, many powerful lessons about the ambiguity and the ambition and the power of various leaders. And so we have to be a little critical of this. And we ourselves have to avoid being led into believing that this group of people or that group of people are evil. Avoid the rhetoric of judgment and the rhetoric of condemnation, and accept the fact that we're all in this together. We're all human beings. We have to learn to get along with each other, to respect each other, to respect human rights, to love our neighbor as ourselves, realizing that our neighbor could very well be a person belonging to another culture, another race, another ethnicity, or another religion. And so together, by believing the positive at every turn, we can persevere through whatever difficulties may come our way. I'm Pastor Steve. Thanks so much for watching this.